Okay. Hey everyone, it begins. We're a few minutes before the hour. Again, this is going to be a 20-minute. I kind of break this up into three different parts. One, sort of an introduction to the theme, a little discussion about the theme, and where I draw some inspiration from all over the place to develop this theme. And then a meditation of sorts, and then I do a little prayer. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining this morning on this. At least in New England, it's cloudy, kind of rainy, cold, classic kind of. I was going to say April, but we're still in March, although it feels like April. So today we're jumping back into the prayer of Saint Francis. Many of you know that Saint Francis was a 13th century cleric, and he was ministering during a time of the Crusades, I think the First Crusade. And he had certainly an inspiration to create a prayer that addressed his peaceful nature and his understanding that God was very much a peaceful being. So I'm just going to read it from beginning to end, and then what we're going to do is focus on the third stanza today. So, again, the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I do not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. So just a little history about what we think St. Francis was doing to promote this one, little part of his prayer, this concept of where there is injury, pardon. So I wanted to discuss that just a bit because in I think the year 1223, St. Francis actually took a trip to Egypt to meet with the leader of the Muslim forces, what we might know as the Sultan. And it was a peaceful dialogue, apparently. And it was a dialogue that focused on understanding and mutual respect and forgiveness. So it was a moment in St. Francis' life where he realized, not only did he need to kind of harness the ability to be peaceful, even though there was so much hatred in the world around the conflict between Christianity and Islam, but that he realized that resentfulness and injury and anger, and bitterness really didn't work, and it's important to pardon. To pardon, pardon as a sort of comes from the Latin pardon, which means to relinquish, let go in some ways, and to not be so consumed with having our own way. And that's my own little interpretation there. Where there is injury, where you have caused injury, where you have caused pain, where you have not been your best, to ask for forgiveness and to act differently, to not forget, because it's in the forgetting that I think we remember how to do things differently, but to ask for a different way of doing things that's love enriched. So, and I was thinking of this subject quite a bit because I was I think at least in the last, well, I could almost say almost last month since we started this whole really process of isolating ourselves and being sheltered in our own homes and trying not to go to stores and interact with people, at least in the normal human way. I was wondering in my own life, who do I need to address? Who do I need to talk to about maybe my resentments, my the things that I didn't do so well, the sinfulness that perhaps I have. Who do I need to go to in order to clean things up? How do I clean up my side of the street? Because you never know what can happen. The numbers are staggering right now. The number of people who are sick and dying, unheard of, really, for a pandemic of this sort. And let's face it, these are very uncertain times. And if there's ever a time to reach out to people and let them know that you love them, or you care about them, or that you want to share the simple joys of something you were able to capture in yesterday's experience, or even today's experience, and share hopefulness and share some joy. Boy, now is a time to do it. I know that I had a conversation with my former wife not so long ago, a couple days ago, and it was redemptive. It was, look, we got a lot, some things didn't go so well a long time ago. Sorry, and let's get together. Let's share. Let's talk about our mutual and collective concerns for our own children and for life moving forward. That was the message that I got. And it wasn't necessarily initiated by me. I have to confess, it was initiated by my former wife. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the rekindling of what should be a loving and thoughtful and kind relationship, given the fact that we have three children together. So I'm thinking of this stanza where there's injury pardon, and yes, there kind of was injury thrown both from both sides in that whole debacle 11 years ago in my life. But there's plenty of room here for pardon, plenty of room for forgiveness, plenty of room for finding the joy in what could be still a very redemptive and thoughtful relationship, even though we're not married anymore. So, and I was listening to Panache Desai this morning. Panache Desai is really I would call him a guru, but he's a spiritual being who has a podcast, and he was talking about purpose in life this morning, and made me think about what our purpose is in this particular time and place in our lives, and that there's our souls cannot live really without understanding that there's purpose in our daily lives and the things that we do. We just has to have it, and part of the soul's job is to provide opportunities to see the deep meaning and value we have as human beings. Um, that's why in Ecclesiastes, a prophet from the Old Testament would talk about you must have opposites. You cannot reap what you cannot sow. You need to have, in order to understand life, you need to understand death. You have to have all these things that wake us up, wake up our lives. Richard Rohr, who was one of my favorite Franciscan priests, is a Franciscan priest, which is not my tradition, but I really love what he has to say. And he says, in this global crisis, we are in fact being initiated, whether we like it or not, into eternal truth. And the eternal truths are forcing us to look at the transcendent nature of life. We wake up every day and probably don't even notice the cardinal that lands on our bird feeder to feed. We don't stop and stare and wonder at that. We just take it for granted. There's a lot we're taking for granted right now that we're suddenly realizing that we cannot take things for granted. I mean, we have loved ones. We have things that happen for us day in and day out. I was looking at a crocus the other day. It's just a bulb that is that is saturated in darkness for at least 5 or months suddenly pops through the ground and shines its brilliant beauty and light, attracting all kinds of insects and eventually bees to its glory. I mean, these are little things reminding us that the soul is absolutely craving the opportunity to wake up. And we can see that through nature. We can see that through the beauty of our lives. We can see that through our children. We can see that through our loved ones and our families and really the memories that we have of all the good things that have happened to us in the past. But we can also see it through our suffering. Now, you know, we don't like to talk about suffering because it kind of hurts to talk about suffering. But forever, whether you look at the Bible, you look at uh, uh, any of the other religious texts out there, it is the suffering in life that ends up being a resurrection for our souls. If we don't get sick, we don't know how valuable it is to feel well. We don't go through pain. We don't know how good it is to feel joy. These are some of the timeless truths in our lives that are just important. Richard Rohr would go on to say this too. He would say, "Look, there are 5 truths. There are 5 essential truths to this kind of eternal initiation in our lives, and they're not easy. Okay, 1, life is hard. Life is hard, and if we don't understand that, we're seeing it now. 2, you're not that important. That's a bit of an ego buster right there. We're not that important. 3, your life is not about you." Okay, we can fight that one all we want to, but truly, our lives are really not about us. It's about a much bigger picture. We are but small things in the scope of it all, and yet big things in the scope of understanding this piece. 4, we're not in control. I mean, if there was ever a time when we're recognizing that we are not in control, this is it. And 5, which is probably the hardest one, you are going to perish. You are going to perish. So these are hard, hard lessons. We don't always like to hear about them in the West. The Eastern traditions, ironically, who I've studied and spent some time with, have a much easier time with all that stuff. The Western traditions, man, Christianity in and of itself is based on a lot of Western theological thinking and systems, if I may say that. And sometimes those systems are very, very humanly interpreted. And I would not say they're even biblical. They're just systems of belief, which kind of orient themselves around our culture and our nature and even our economics. So we have to transcend that and go beyond that. And really, what's happening here in this global crisis, from my point of view, is an awakening to what really matters and what's really, really important. And if we base our lives and value our lives on things like the money that we have, the assets that we belong to, the homes that we keep, the cars that we drive, the clothes that we wear, all of these things that are insurmountably important in the Western world, we are going to suffer. If we don't have a value system that goes beyond those things that are external to our hearts, minds, and souls, we will suffer. At least if we recognize that as suffering. So, let's go into some meditation because these are pretty heavy subjects, but they're really important. They're important, and I'm gonna start with just some silence here, and if you could ground yourself, find a level of comfort, relax your body, maybe have your feet on the ground, and your chest out and your head up. As a massage therapist, I know that we're all energetic. We all carry a certain electricity, and if we don't ground our bodies under the ground, we're really not connected. And when we're connected, we flow a whole lot better as human beings. So let's just take a moment. And feel your body. Feel the nerve endings, the flow of your blood, the quickening of your nerves, the sense that you're not alone. And understand that a wake up is upon us. We are being quickened. We are being awakened to go deeper as a human being, as a consciousness of human psychology. We are asked to go within. Now, I know you know we don't always like to do this. This is sometimes a lot of work to go within, to stop our insanity, to stop our busyness. We love to nest, and we love to be busy. We really don't want to stop, because then we actually have to look at what's underneath the hood. So find that chance to just relax, to settle in, to find the calm, to hold back from the desire to get back to that list of things that you need to do on this Sabbath day. It's a little ironic that every day is now feeling like a Sabbath day. So distance yourself from that list. Doesn't have to be done today. Perhaps what needs to be done today is to quiet your mind. To find the chance to look within and find those eternal truths. To seek the presence of God in our lives. That at this stage in our global lives is desperately asking us to connect to something beyond what's on the surface. I encourage you to find whatever that is, to find that quiet, to close the door. Now, as many of you know, I'm in the Christian tradition, so I think of Jesus a lot when I think of these things, because when I read the Gospels, I note how often Jesus leaves like the throng of people, and he escapes and goes to his own little room to quiet, or he walks up to the hillside or a mountaintop to escape, even his disciples. And many of us would think that that means that he's retreating and escaping the noise and the madness of the people. And while that may be true, what I think he's doing is connecting. We all have to connect. We all have to literally stop what we're doing. You know, I know that probably half of us on this call right now are jotting down lists, maybe reading something else, looking at their phones. Stop. Be present. Focus on being in oneness with the God in our midst that is carrying us, holding us, empowering us, looking at us, listening to us, engaging us, and begging us really to look at the things we don't want to look at. Because in order for the soul to grow, we have to seek out what we are grateful for. We have to love the unlovable. We have to be conscious of the suffering that is taking place around us, and maybe be conscious of our own suffering, which we like to ignore. We do. We don't want to call it suffering. We'll call it 1,000 other things before we call it suffering. And that's a choice. It's a choice to ignore it. It's a choice to emotionally not name it. I know that I am just going to ask that we continue to name those things and lift those things up to God and to seek help and to seek reassurance and to be quiet within enough to turn off that mind, that monkey mind. I call it the monkey mind. It's called a lot of things. But when I'm in a state of prayer, when I'm in a state of meditation, there's not much else that gets in the way. I can rule out the noise of life. And I'm asking you to rule out the noise of life. To find a moment in your day to sort of check out. And I know it's hard. But find that peace. Find that comfort. Find that love of self enough to do that. Because, when we're in that place where we're sort of escaping, and I use that word generally speaking, I don't mean that we're escaping reality, but we're just departing from our human nature. And we're being asked to get into a deeper, more resonant place where we're constantly really, really more aware of what's happening around us so that we can experience some joy in the midst of all this madness. It does feel chaotic, I'll grant you that. But there is peace and there is joy and there is hope in everything that is taking place today to help us to find that. God, bless us and keep us and move us. For where there is injury in our lives and in the lives of others, help us to find the ability to pardon. All right, folks. It's 20 minutes after the hour. I really want to be clear that this is a 20-minute meditation and prayer time. So blessings to you all. Love you all. And have a joyful day. And I mean that. Find the joy in all that you can today and always.